somebody in the corporate world, that's the thing I can say, that's a harder
We
one.
have an accounting department and they're accountants, so they came from that world. So, but I think it's, because they don't see the food side of it, they just see kind of the number, oh, like, oh yeah, you got a bill from Woodford, okay, that's it. They don't realize that the
Right.
service staff had come in and it's, you know, and we try to, I guess, make that in there when we're booking the events.
Right.
You know, make sure waiting, but, you know, that cost will be in there somewhere.
We actually have 2 separate invoices. My special events person, she's doing an event, she's teaching a class a little bit later today. She literally has one where it breaks it down, and it'll have a media cost line to cover the person to come run your slideshow. They have all these different,
Yeah, we have that,
each
yeah,
line,
it's in there.
and we actually found for her sake that it was easier when she went to them and explained that you're still having to pay for people to, or the prep time or whatever, but.
It's okay with
It's
that, because
disconnect.
that's in there.
Yeah.
Because it's security is in there and it
Right.
breaks it down.
There's just, unfortunately, a disconnect sometimes. It's, you know, we all want to be ministry driven, but at the end of the day, that spreadsheet has to balance. So it's a hard line to walk. Sorry about that. Credit, debit, we all know those, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Really? Awesome. I can confuse, I have a girlfriend who's not even a blonde, I can confuse her in 2 seconds just mentioning those 2 words to her. It's a tough one, really. The food costs. We were talking about budgeting the food costs. As a church, we try not to inflate anything too much because, again, at the end of the day, we're servicing ministries. And we do not want to put that weight on them anymore either. But you do have to make sure you are building into your food costs, your staff, your equipment, whatever it is you're doing. So in a cost analysis, I would say very firmly, look at that. Poor Paul again. I torture him about 3 to 4 times a year. I make him sit down with me and let's look at the entire list of our usual sold items and let's discuss for the catering type of events, is it still where it needs to be? Assessment is your choice. Obviously, it's going to make a difference on how busy you are as to how often you can do it. But reassess. Oh my gosh, anybody notice how expensive limes are right now? Mm-hmm. Yes. So anything you're producing with lime, did you build enough cost in to cover that big of an increase? You didn't notice? What do you say?
The margaritas.
Right? Woo! Moving right along. The Baptist church. Did you know that part? It's difficult because you do want to build in a certain amount of cushion, but at the same time, I don't want to be charging them $1 per lime that we're using because that's exorbitant. But at Kroger, just down the road, they're selling them 2 for $1.
Yes.
So you do have to walk that fine line. So how often are you assessing? One of my vendors that we get our produce from, they do a quarterly. They guarantee their prices for 1 quarter. And so at each quarter, your prices may be completely different, but he's guaranteeing them for a certain amount of time to help us. So when I'm ready to do my cost analysis, I can just get the new front quarter and change anything from that side. So talk to your vendors.
I got a question, and like I say, I'll hit on this because, I mean, I don't worry about it and I don't make a deal of it, a big deal of it, but I'm hearing it more from here that it exists, that it does exist. You know, I'm given just say I have a ministry banquet packet. And so I'm given a number, the charge for the ministry, and it's never discussed on anything other than this is what I want them to charge. My ministry banquet menu is $8.95 per person on one side of the property and $9.95 if it's on a different side. And that consists of an entree, starch, veggie, salad, a coffee, water, tea with all the condiments, two dressings, and all the stuff to go with it. And I mean, that has.
Are you putting your
Do you charge
place
staff?
settings,
Do
your
you charge
linens,
staff?
your
Yeah,
staff?
yeah, and it hasn't altered, and it hasn't altered in 6 years. And like my Wednesday night supper.
Right, I'm going to your place for dinner.
But the problem,
for
so
you
what
to serve
I
us.
do is try to make sure, I mean, I know that I can do something for that, but I'm saying to sit down with concerned people or administrations and look at numbers across the board. Is there a lot of churches that don't do that? Because we don't, I guess. I mean, and per my understanding, like after meeting with my boss prior to the trip, it just seems like the numbers always, they're happy with where the numbers at based on it.
Of course they
My
are.
my Lori Smith sits down with me and goes, why did you do this?
Oh, I do that too.
Yeah, and I go, okay, I stopped doing that, we're all out of free. And therefore, when they say it has to be $8.95, I go back to them and say, fine, for $8.95, I can do you a spaghetti dinner
Yeah.
with a garlic bread.
Drop
and a
off that
small
you can
salad,
serve.
Right.
And it's gonna be on disposables.
You had something, I'm sorry?
One thing I do that helps me if I need to do a quick estimate is I'll try and figure out what my basic food cost is, just for the
Product,
food,
yeah.
and then whatever that is, I double it. And that typically will cover most of the
That's your
labor.
50%.
And I'll double it, and that'll typically cover my labor for that event. I mean, it doesn't cut, my overhead is covered by the general church budget.
Right.
And so I don't have to worry about that. And then I come back, the way we do it is, it's cost basis, so I come on the back end of an event. My staff has a usage sheet, and so when they do the event, if they use a cup of salt, they write 1 cup salt. If they use 5 pounds of butter over the course of the whole event, they write it on the sheet, and then I cost that out after the event, and whatever the event actually costs is what I charge. And I'll figure out my food cost, I'll add 15% to that to cover parchment paper or
Right.
towels from the hand washing sink. Then I have a labor line item, a linen line item, all my beverages I have in a little, I can just click a box and it pre-fills the number of
How
gallons.
many people are using packages? Like you've got, here, they get this package, each type of dinner package or a reception package. And then there's other, I set EM up as a self-serve. I've got basic meeting services. There's what you want. There's the price displayed right there that I'm charging you, whether you're a ministry or an outside group. That is the price of what we are selling. So I'm afraid I'd
Well, I'm just
revolt
saying,
this for him. I don't know any other
our
advice for that,
mindset
but-
in corporate world is double lunch, triple dinner. Used to be the old, but I'm just
Right.
saying the way some churches, I don't know if it's because, I mean, I've heard a group here
I think
today.
it all depends on the culture of your church.
Right,
Some, who's paying your labor?
Right.
right,
You or the church?
right. Well, my labor is split up. The
Okay.
church is paying, yeah, mine
So-
is broken out through school and through church.
So when the $8.95 price doesn't count labor?
Right.
Oh, okay. That
Yeah,
makes
see,
a lot
in
more
my world,
sense.
Right.
it also doesn't
Right.
include linens, it doesn't
Right.
include
Well,
a
no,
place
linen
sitting, all that is separate,
Linen-
so.
If it's a meal, place settings and all that's included, linens are not.
I have a package, because there's so ministries, I don't mean to be ugly, they want cheap, they want fast, they want pretty, I say pick two.
You mean some?
That's,
Not
yeah.
all?
So we created a ministry meal package. There's 4 meals. It's like beans and rice, there's sausage in it, there may be King Ranch chicken, comes with some basic stuff. It's gonna be in disposable aluminum pans. I will have it ready for you to come pick up and you can do whatever you want with it.
During
And that
normal
is
business
basically
hours.
food cost
Yes.
type of stuff. If you want a pretty sit-down dinner, yes, that's going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
Look at the reality of it. I have had to get many admins come sit in my office and go, okay, let me explain. The way this is gonna work is you can drop it off and you can provide people to serve it, or we can serve it for you. If we serve it for you, you're paying us to do that. They don't like hearing that, but they do need to hear it. So I would run several
Well,
numbers.
what we
and
always
push
do,
that.
well, we have Publix where we are, a grocery store. You can pick up platters of food and stuff like that. And, when we give them a platter price for what we do, you're setting that up. I said, well, if you buy that from Publix or Panera Breads or whatever, do they come to your place and set it up?
Right.
Well, no. Then why would you expect us to do that?
Right.
We'll be glad to do it for you, but we gotta add that into the cost. We gotta do the analysis.
We have a couple of similar things like that. We do
Right.
a commissary piece
Mhm.
and a meal piece, a catering piece. If you're doing commissary, you want beverages or whatever, we'll sell it to you at 15% above what we're getting it.
Yeah.
But you have to come get it.
Yeah.
You come up during business hours, and you can get 3 cases of whatever you want, plus 15%. And then they go get that. So they've taken care of their beverage.
Right.
But then they're gonna want the cups,
Plates and-
and
Nice.
straw and all that. So we put that also on our commissary, so they take all that with them.
Right.
And they're done, and then we'll sell them the meal, like you say, in a disposable, and off it goes.
Break it down.
And
how's it
generally,
gonna
it's
be?
cheaper doing it that way than for them to go to the grocery store and buy it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And they'll
Oh, yeah.
come
Don't
and
even-
pick the
that's
tree
even-
up.
they can't
and
even
send
consider
it
it a
out
liability
and
and
do it
Right.
themselves.
Right.
Some of them, not all of them will.
Some
Some
of
of them
them
will.
don't.
The
Let
music
me state
people
for the
won't.
record, it is a some of them.
What?
Yeah,
The music people
but you
won't.
just, you let,
For me, it's
Funny how
women.
that's
They're
probably the
artists.
same in every church.
you gotta give them the choice. I
Yes.
mean,
That's what-
the way we do it is
We
a
do
lot
as
of our
well.
admin assistants, they do this, they set the tables, they
Yeah.
put the linen out, they set the tables, they do the arrangement. I'm happy to do it, but I'm gonna charge you by the hour
Right.
at a certain rate for us to do that. And when you tell a pastor that, well, he's gonna just get his assistant to do it. She's there anyway.
Right.
He's just gonna have them do it, you know, rather than
And
having
it
to pay
does
us
depend,
extra.
obviously, on their budget and how many people they have. Like this week, I don't know if you noticed, there's a bunch of children running around the building. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Right.
Adjust
Yes.
on it too.
So it's just been, at that point, we cannot reach anybody in children's or preschool. If there's any questions about any of that stuff, they are not available. It's just not available. So when you want something, it is very much dependent on, we've been feeding their people lunches every day. So there might have been a question about something and finally just went, oh, we'll just give them this. That's all we can do because they're not available.
I
Yes, sir.
mean, so you're charging them, so in other words, you charge back to the ministries as they allocate foods for you guys? Well, I know what we'll do, we'll have like functions, large events, and we'll get outside contractor for like workers or whatever, as far as wait staff and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then we'll charge the prices that it costs, actually what it costs per hour for the wait staff to go right back into that ministry. That ministry pays for that in addition to the
Right.
food they're paying.
Yeah.
Right.
We do that, and if it's an outside event, it is completely separate. In-house is
Exactly.
done by the admins here,
Well,
so
like
their
his
administrator
like
does
his
it, but.
account, my account does the same thing as far as with the labor, all the labor out of my kitchen pretty much comes off of the, out of the church itself.
Church.
Right. See,
Except for the contracted labor for functions and events.
right, for ours, all of our kitchen staff, we're paid out of the culinary budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have a separate account.
And yeah, we have to
Well,
keep that
my
into
Wednesday night
account.
dinner is $6.
Mine.
I mean,
Me
full-
too.
I mean, full
Ah.
service, all you can eat, salad, everything.
Right.
Fresh soups,
Lunch-
fresh everything.
Lunch
Five,
five, four,
Yeah, they got fives over
$40
there.
family mat.
Yeah, we have-
Exactly, it's like a $20 family.
And how many
Thanksgiving.
people are you feeding, and how many people are working?
Kitchen
those
is
events?
Still full of
Yeah,
a
it's,
lot of chicken, a lot of random chicken.
part of the difference is, right, so when the ministry comes to me and says, we want this fancy dinner, I'm gonna charge usually, I usually add a little percentage on there, and I'll cushion
Oh, yeah,
Wednesday
yeah.
night.
Yep.
I'm gonna tell you guys something, for the
That's all you can
tenderloin,
do.
the shoulder clots are really good.
Yeah.
The shoulder clots is really good for, instead of tenderloin, I mean, I tried to product beef.
The Terrence Major?
Yeah,
Awesome.
Terrence
Terrence
Major.
Major's phenomenal.
They're good, but the thing is that the cut, trying to, trim all that, taking all that, it's a lot of work. But I mean, and overall price, you can serve a tenderloin meal for a really good deal.
We started
Really
doing, braised short rib. We get
Yeah.
a boneless beef short rib, and
Yeah.
it's not quite as cheap as the Terrace Major, but you can
Short rib?
break, yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Okay, the $6 Wednesday night
I'll be
that we
getting
do
those too.
here,
I've
Yeah,
got-
we don't do
we are
that.
required
I got a good
to
price.
supply Chick-fil-A tenders and sandwiches as well.
Ah,
I am also required to have pizza.
From out, the Chick-fil-A's from outside.
You gotta
Chick-fil-A.
pre-buy it.
You have to have Chick-fil-A. That's
You
it.
have to pre-buy it.
Chick-fil-A, I can't, not chicken tenders,
Oh, wow.
Chick-fil-A.
No, we do,
Yeah,
Yes,
he gets
we
all
buy
the
it.
best.
no, I do
Yeah.
You have to
chicken.
buy it.
Yes,
and,
yes, yes.
Wow.
So I had leftovers as well.
That
Yes.
takes your whole thing. Now, do you do the same thing, Chuck?
I don't know about you.
Outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
here's the thing, when I came in and I looked at those numbers, when Paul handed me that spreadsheet first, I was like, okay, I haven't looked at any numbers yet, but I'm pretty sure it's $6 a person, we're not covering that much Chick-fil-A, that much pizza, and a pot roast dinner, and the salad buffet, and the hot baked potato buffet, and the soup all you can eat. Oh, and there's dessert, oh, there's tea, and there's water. It's not, and you have to be a bean counter to know that. But we
But-
have to know, is we're in a church, and you still have to accommodate certain groups and or nights.
But before
There's
you
no
do
way
have any of
around
those
that.
conversations, you better have your cost analysis done. You better know what you're
Right.
talking about. You can't sit there and say, there's no way I can do it for $6.
Yeah.
Well, what's your food cost?
Right.
Yeah.
Then you are a fool. You
Right.
need to know all of this before you, because you know what? You might be covering it. You might just be fat.
Right.
Yeah.
You might just have too much labor or too much waste or something.
Right.
But you've got to figure out everything on your menu before you
know.
quote a price to anybody.
Right.
You better be darn sure how much it's gonna cost you for everything.
Right.
Labor, linens,
That's a huge
cleanup.
Right.
Do the research before you open your
Okay.
mouth.
Yes.
That's what I tell Paul all the time. Don't get me wrong. It's not meant to be in any way, shape, or form ugly. But stop and think for a second, right? In the spur of the moment when they catch you in the hallway and say, about how much is this dinner? You say, I'll have to get back to you on
Yep.
that. Can you
Don't
send
give,
me an
just
email,
because they ask you a
please?
question, you
No.
have to
Yeah.
answer them.
We have
Sorry.
to-
When I first started a year ago doing food and beverage, our repass, nobody knew how much we were spending, because we still do them, and of course, we pay for them,
Wow.
regardless of the amount of people that will attend. And so I had to go in and I got every piece of paper, every napkin, every whatever. Normally it's during the week, so the staff is already there, we have a chef and kitchen staff. But they had to know each line, they were like, well, can you do it for $5? No, or we won't do them. And so my thing was, either get somebody outside to do it, or we do it.
Yeah.
It's either or, but this is the price.
Yeah.
So it's like $10 a person. They may have 150 people. I don't care if 50 doesn't show, I'm
Right.
still gonna charge you 150 people.
That's right.
And the thing is, and we've had a lot of waste, but then again, that's food costs, that's all of this, that's a lot, when it comes down to
Our
it.
women's
But-
ministry does not ever want to run out of anything.
Correct. No ministry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, I have ministries, I explained.
Yeah.
You can order this much, and that's how much you're gonna pay. Or you can give me free reign, and I'll charge you on the backside for whatever
Correct.
you're doing. But most ministries hear that and like, oh, no, they can drink water when we're out of tea. Most of my ministries are, no, this much tea, period. But my women's ministry will not, they don't want anything to be empty.
Well, you
So-
can't, you really can't as a professional.
And they want it to be full until the last
You can't
minute.
run out of stuff.
It's
Really,
a-
can you?
It depends. We have many events where if it's
You
a
can't run.
polite thing, they run out of tea, there's plenty of water there, and there's coffee, chances are this ministry is not gonna pay us for my tea.
Well, I don't
They
think
picked what
my
they wanted,
church
and that
would
was
want me
it.
to, I don't think that
Right.
the spearhead with a host would want you to run out. So my mindset is that you don't run out.
It also depends on the event. If we're meeting in here and in the back of the room, we have a complimentary coffee, tea, water, Danish dish. And it's sitting out there for each class. Do they stop and refill it in between each class?
Well, I'm not comparing that to an event, to a banquet. I wouldn't compare.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It
Yes,
makes a
I'm
difference on the
It's a
event.
difference on the event, yeah.
At weddings, we don't run out of anything.
Right.
And here's the big one, to refill, like they want the fancy urn, they want it all pretty for their
The
event.
women's and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you can have the pretty urn, but now you're paying one of my people to come stand in there and watch to make sure you don't break my $4,000 urn.
Yeah.
Because those are darn expensive to replace and or fix. So, as soon as they hear that, they're like, wow, that stainless one is just fine. Just offer them the choices. It really is. Just make sure you're putting realistic prices. That's a huge one. Because, you know, I can say I'm gonna charge you $10 a plate for Wednesday night. You know, as much as I'm complaining about the Chick-fil-A, we're not spending $10 a person. So just be honest, be realistic, but be accurate.
The other thing with that, I'm sorry to interrupt there, is like with the women's ministry, we've gone to several of those as well, where they don't want to pay, they have a budget, they have their overall budget. And you can typically sit down and work with them when you go back and say, well, mine's gonna cost you $12. Well, I don't have that for food. Yes, but you've got some decoration budget built in here, and when you go in and you hold firm with your pricing, then they can tend to find it. That's one way. The other way is I go in and if they are doing a menu, I have the line item menu and I go over it with, this is what it costs at 10%, 20%, 30%, 70%, whatever the food cost is. And I'll go up to my admin accounting and say, okay, they're wanting it for this price. This is the food cost on it. He said, well, they can't have it. They can have it at 45% or 50% food cost, and I'll find the rest. And I don't know where he gets the money from his budget or whatever, but he'll supplement it. Because he wants it to come out of some.
And that doesn't
other-
count how the
administration
office
office is.
Because I'm not allowed to cushion, like our prices are firm, that price is it. Our price is firm.
Correct,
So
but
it
I
does
make certain
depend
if that
where
happens,
they're
that
coming
women's
from.
knows, hey,
Yeah.
the other ministry
somebody else
is
make that call.
paying for the rest, they're sponsoring the
Yeah,
rest of
somebody's
your
having to
event.
balance that.
Because
That's a question.
nothing is free,
Yeah.
somebody has to either pay and or sacrifice.
speaking
You
of
were
what
talking
you said,
about
yeah.
the admin that had to do it, she had to sacrifice her time, that she's not doing something of her time. And typically it happens, you, me, whatever, that we're sacrificing time with our family because we're covering, because we don't wanna charge somebody else.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, I understand what you're trying to do, but you might as well just write a check,
Yeah,
because that's what you're doing. I
Yes.
mean, if I'm working extra hours for free for that ministry's budget, I might as well just start writing a donation check to
Right.
that ministry.
Exactly.
And
Sorry, what
that's
was
not
yours?
what we're doing.
I guess I want to talk about the, I wanted to ask you personally about this particular account right here. I'm talking about the money funnel called coffee services. Okay, that funnel. How is that picked up?